Okay, we are live now. And Trustee Tejada just had internet issues, so she may have dropped. Hopefully she can get back on. Just see if we were live. Dropped. Can we hold 1 second? Oh, here she goes. Okay. Yay, we're all here. Zoom live, everyone. So it is 7:06. I call this meeting to order. Ms. Bell, can I get a roll call, please?
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Ochapinti?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mrs. Ian Garrett?
Present.
Ms. Tejada?
Here.
And Ms. Salahuddin.
Here. And then just to acknowledge our student trustees, Trustee Her.
Here.
Trustee Abuzadea.
Here.
Trustee Kleinfeld.
Here.
Trustee Green, do you have sound tonight or are you just in the chat? He's present. Okay, fantastic. Nice. I will keep an eye on the chat for you. All right, moving ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Lee. Trustee Irene Lee is also here. Excuse me. All right, moving on. Can I get Dr. Loria, are there any changes to the agenda?
I'm sorry. Pardon the interruption. Madeline Her is also here.
I said her first.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Did you say no changes? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. Reporting out of closed session. The board took action on agreement 2020/2021-7 by agreeing to reimburse $45,750 for tuition and $1,000 attorney fees for a total amount of $46,750. That was the only action that was taken. Moving on to communications, board report, turning it over to Trustee Her.
So recently the AP teachers updated and clarified their entry requirements, such as having a B+ in all the classes, getting a recommendation from the teacher, and as a last step, it would be student's PSAT score. The new schedule still has gotten a lot of positive feedback, but we also might change it for next semester depending on how it goes. We also service requirements a while ago because it is really hard to find community service opportunities right now, and we gave a formula for each grade for a certain requirement. Communication is a little bit difficult among the students because it's very different now, and we've been trying to engage the students and get connected through social media, but it is still hard to get everyone to junior class meetings and senior class meetings. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Irene Lee.
So, so there's no new changes to the attendance for Westmore. Also for Westmore, the WASC is coming on November 10th. They'll be talking to staff, students, trustees, and also student government and service commissioners that we have. And also today was day one of Club Brush. There was an average of about 50 students in each club. There was like 4 clubs that went today, and they had around 50 students each. This was way better than the attendance clubs had before Club Rush. It was around 14 students for each club. However, there was like a huge jump, which was very nice to see. And also a few hours ago, seniors received the email for ordering caps and gowns for graduation and also senior portrait schedules. That will be from November 5th to 16th. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Abuzadea.
Not much to report, but at the last board meeting, I said how like around 40 students needed a hotspot, but now they all have a hotspot, and we also got an excess amount. So we wanted to thank Mr. Meyer for that and the district for that. Also, just to echo what Irene said, today was the first day of Club Rush. Each club has 15 minutes to present their like the general info about their club. The next 2 days will be on Thursday and Friday. And I think it's from 1:45 to 3:15 or 1:45 to 3:30, depending on how many clubs signed up for each day. Westmore also now has a club's website, which is really cool. Because before on the Westmore website, we just had like a list of all the clubs, but now we plan on, right now the website's mainly being used for Club Rush, but we plan on like having information about all clubs. Also, one thing to note was that emails from the district will sometimes go to student spam. So that's why, Ms. Baca, you didn't have a lot of students respond to that distance learning survey because it went to spam for a lot of us. That is all. Thank you.
Hey, this is Jake. Can I jump in real quick and just say that we resolved that issue? We whitelisted all the emails coming from Blackboard to student inboxes, and it should automatically go to their inbox, even if they reported as spam, which was reportedly happening. Some students were reporting them as spam. So that issue should be resolved.
Thank you. Trustee Kleinfeld?
I guess I have a little bit to report. Basically, Terra Nova had its club fair on Monday. I wasn't able to attend because I had an emergency that came up, but I heard it went pretty well. There were some communication issues because I found out about it at 12:30 and it happened at 1:30. And I know a lot of people like me and my sister who wanted to go and attend the club fair could not attend because the notice was too short. And I did speak to some people from leadership who were kind of in charge of it, and they were confused about it too. They weren't really sure what was going on. So that was kind of not good. But I guess for those who could make it, I think they enjoyed their experiences with the clubs. I know that Tiger News Network had their broadcast tonight at 6, and they talked about local news, school news, California news, and gave some COVID updates. I know they always research their videos very well because I'm a part of that club, so I know what they're doing. And then I think Terra Nova had a roundtable fundraiser that happened last Friday night. And I know that a lot of people came to get pizza. I don't really know how successful it was, but I think it was successful. I know a lot of people were there at roundtable that night. And I think class meeting attendance for seniors has gone up. That's another person on leadership told me that. So I think everything is going pretty well for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Green put in the chat that he had nothing to report at this time. Moving on to Trustee Ochapinti.
Yeah, as we're moving through the semester, just noticing our community, there's a little more movement publicly. Of course, just to remind people, to take their time. There's a lot of pressure to reopen everywhere, and businesses are beginning to reopen, the malls beginning to reopen. Some of our students are working at the mall. I'm aware of that. Just for all of us to be mindful, that everybody's essential, but those of our community who are essential workers, to continue giving them the space that they need to, be safe in the workplace. And of course, with our district, just looking at the news and where we are in the Bay Area and in California, as things move forward, there is increased testing available. And if you're finding the opportunity, then good. If it's still hard to get tested, of course, encouraging everybody to take their time, not feel rushed because of what's going on in areas around people, who are doing that. Another thing I noticed recently, there were reported ICE immigration sweeps of people who are undocumented across the nation and in our state. Daly City was one of the cities that was noted in that. And so not to cause alarm, but to raise awareness for our community to obviously, one, know your rights. Among those being that we are a sanctuary state by law, the state of California, and that regardless of whether or not cities and counties are cooperating, which they should not be, that people should not feel afraid, but empowered and should know those rights. And beyond that, that we should be spreading that news that these things are still happening. They're out of our control because at the federal level, but the more we raise awareness, the more we can empower people to know not to open the door and those kind of things, and to know how to defend themselves with their own civil and human rights that they are afforded in the state of California to the best of our ability. The other part being that, noticing that, we have students who are engaging in community service where they can, given that it is COVID and is dangerous, to, put yourself at risk of anything in public, where there is opportunity online or wherever you feel safe is doing, to get involved in this election. If it's encouraging people to vote, whether it's advocating for a certain candidate or a measure. In San Francisco, for example, there's a proposition on the ballot, Prop G, which is to push for youth to be able to participate in elections, in municipal elections, 16 and 17 years old. And I think it's something we should be looking at, obviously, in our local areas here, in Daly City, Pacifica areas, Brisbane, Rockland, of course, in San Mateo County. That would be a great thing to look at and maybe advance. Something else the youth might be interested in doing, because your voices matter, and I think in our board and given everything that's been done with our board trustees and youth advisory council, that we can do that and help promote that. And so, yeah, we have 2 weeks to the election. Get involved, and I'll leave it at that.
And just to clarify, as board, we can't take a side or a position on either or during a board meeting. So that is just informational, but please feel free to make your own decisions on any proposition that's on the ballot. Opening it up to Trustee Lee, Andy Lee.
Thank you. Not a whole lot. I mean, for me to report out, other than a bunch of meetings that I've been able to attend recently, including the Pacifica Joint Articulation meeting, which has the City of Pacifica, us, Pacifica School District, and the North Coast County Water District, the 4 public agencies that service the city. There's not a whole lot to report out of there, other than I think everybody. Once again, anything we do is COVID related, right? It's impacted by that. Although the city noted that they've been able to use this opportunity to be able to pave some much needed streets. Which, if you're down in Pacifica, there's definitely certain streets that have been in desperate need of paving. So, aside from that, it's I'm always heartened to hear from the students and. Again, this is clearly not an ideal situation at all, but I'm always heartened to hear the ways that students are trying to connect and make sure that their classmates are able to connect with each other outside of the Zoom classroom. When I hear Club Rush, and despite the hiccups that have gone along with it in recent days, but the fact is, you guys are doing an amazing job trying to make sure you're trying to create as normal, such as it is, a situation as you can for your fellow students. And for that, I am truly grateful, and I really commend you. And once again, it's always fun to see, the different ASBs and the virtual spirit weeks on Instagram, and to see the scores posted by class and the different things students are sharing. And so really, really great job, students. And please pass that on to all of your fellow students, because I think you guys continue to impress, and the encouragement, I think, is so necessary in a time like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Ian Garcia. I'm sorry, Ian Garrett. It's a long day for me.
It's okay. We're good. Well, Trustee Lee just took all the words out of my mouth, and I am also really happy to hear that all the students are really trying to make the situation as normal as possibly can, and working with what you got. So I'm really proud to hear that, and it makes me feel inspired that despite the current situation that we're in, that you're just definitely doing the best that you can and making the best out of the situation that we're in. So I also like to take a little bit of time to congratulate the Hawkins Vaught family into giving a forever home to baby Chloe. And I wish that all foster children should be so lucky to be, I'm gonna tear up a little bit, to be able to find a home as wonderful as people like April and Crystal. So I just want to say that, and I'm really happy for them. I know this is something they wanted for a long time, and they fought really hard to get. So again, I just want to really congratulate them, and they are definitely make an example of, you know, how all foster families should be when they're giving love to foster children. So I just want to say that. So I'm turning a little bit, and again, I'm still doing at-home learning, and as I am doing at-home learning myself with my daughter, that every day that I do at-home learning, that I want to thank all the teachers and staff at our school district that are working so hard to also make this at-home learning experience as normal and engaging as possible for everyone. And I know it's been really hard, but I definitely, see the effort, and I really appreciate all of you. So I do want to say that as well. So that's all I have to report today. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Tejada.
Hi. So I'm a representative on the County Committee for School District Organization. And so usually we only convene if there's something going on, but so I guess there's a push to have all districts go to election by trustee area. And there'll be more on that in the November meeting. And we also, and there's also a vacancy in District 5, Supervisorial District 5. And so we've got a few months to be able to appoint someone to that. Let's see, so I also went to the Student Advisory Council meeting last night, which was always very informative, and our students really tell it like it is. I'm really grateful for them feeling, being very empowered and sharing their views on like things like return to school. So yeah, having a junior myself, she had to study for finals last week, take finals, and then the next day start a new quarter. So there's no break for her. I see the stress that they're under. I had to actually, she has a lot of eye strain now, and because she's always on her computer. And if she's not on her computer, she's on her phone. And then sometimes I wonder, what are you doing on your phone? You should be in class. And she says, no, I'm taking notes. So, she could be on her phone and she could be doing work. So we're just locked in the house together. So I've got to kind of chill a little bit on that. And she also does I think the students have the strain of being in distance learning, and then also trying to be engaged, with this virtual world we live in. My daughter's actually joined a lot more clubs than she would normally have, which she's happy about. And but it's still really hard to connect. And, as parents, we need to realize that it's hard. This is a hard time for them, and they're adjusting really well. And I also just want to thank the teachers and the staff for, God, sometimes I'm able to listen in on the classes, and there is learning going on, but there's also a lot of good teaching going on. And I just really want to thank the teachers for trying to keep our students, engaged and actually learning. And that's all I have to say right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Really quickly, I've been to a ton of meetings, Student Advisory Council. Ms. Preston and I met with the representatives from Daly City Police Department. There have been a couple of meetings around the county around testing, and that's where I'm going to focus on now. The color coding and the grading of the county when it comes to COVID is an ongoing process that that is more focused on reopening the economy than it is about public safety. So while I congratulate the county for the work that they're doing, and I'm happy that we're finally moving forward with some things like robust testing that is hopefully going to come to our community and happen out at Jefferson Union High School District at one of our schools. We are 7 months into this process, and we are just getting testing that's coming to the communities that we know are hotspots. Like, that's, to me, is ridiculous. I don't know how safe it is until we have a robust testing system that is safe and that people feel safe using, with wraparound services that are available to people so that they know that if they do test positive, they won't lose their job. They won't be afraid to report that. They won't lose their home. You know, if you're in dense housing, the easiest thing is just to kick the person out that has COVID and not take that risk so the rest of the people don't lose their job. So, you know, there has been a lot. It's the question of what are we going to do for households that are historically and systemically dealing with oppression and poverty has been asked since March, and we're finally getting an answer in October. You know, that's not how we eradicate COVID. That's looking to me like we're more focused on spending resources on how we reopen the economy. So while the numbers or the colors may change to show that it's safe for the economy to be open, that doesn't mean it's safe for any of us. And so I would just ask people to stay the course, to continue to be diligent in wearing their masks, to continue to be diligent. And, you know, while it's really hard, I mean, I struggle myself. I have not been in the same room with all of my sisters for 7 months. We all live in the Bay Area, and we usually don't go a couple of days without seeing each other. We have dinner every week. So to not be able to see my sisters for a couple of months has been excruciating. But I'm trying to keep my family safe, and I want everybody else to keep their family safe. We are now having talks about how we're going to handle Thanksgiving over Zoom. And that breaks my heart. You know, it's heartbreaking to think that we're not going to all be in the same household for Thanksgiving, but there'll be future Thanksgivings that we'll all be able to be at and be safe. And so I want that for our entire JUHSD community. I want us to get through this, all of us, you know, not just some of us or the privileged of us that, like myself, that can stay home, all of us to get through this as safely as possible. So there are basic things that we could be doing that we know keep us safe. And so I'm hoping people stay diligent and stay the course for yourselves and for all of our neighbors. Turning it over to Dr. Deloria.
Thank you. I want to underscore some of the things that President Salahuddin said. As the data starts to look like it's improving, it's not time to relax. It's time to really double down and stay diligent. I did send an email to all our staff reminding them about the basic 4, like we have all along, about masks and washing hands and physical distancing and avoiding and small groups. But I added a couple. One was about not sharing food. We're used to celebrating around food and potlucks and things like that. And now is not the time to do that. We had to find other ways to appreciate each other that doesn't involve sharing food and putting people at risk. And also about taking the health survey online if people are going to work on campus. As you know, I've been filling in over at Westmore this week, and it's really been a good experience for me to get a sense of what it looks like in terms of getting the services and items that students need to be successful. And I have to say, I'm really impressed. And the bulk of this is on the classified staff, whether they're trying to get transcripts to students, whether they're trying to issue work permits or textbooks or hotspots, or if a laptop needs to be repaired. All of our classified staff are working together to get this out. And oftentimes when families can't get to the school to pick something up, our van drivers are delivering things. So I think we can all be extremely proud of our classified staff to the degree that they're serving students. I'm just really, really proud. And it was good to see that. And I know that's happening at the other schools as well. The other thing at Westmore is once an hour, I walk around the classrooms, or not in the classrooms, but I walk hallways and in the main building and in the smaller buildings. And as you know, there are teachers who choose to teach from school. And to hear the degree to which the teachers, because some of them have their door open, and so you can hear them talking to the students In particular, I'm thinking about an ESL classroom where there's already a barrier with language, and to see the extent to which Charlotte is going to make sure kids are talking and are involved and feel safe, it is really impressive. Just super, super, super proud of all that. I wanted to go back to something board member Ingeric said. I remember last December, we were at the holiday party in the Galleria sharing food. And that's when April got the call. It was like at 1:30 in the afternoon, and she got the call about Chloe. And she laughed and she had nothing. She and Crystal had nothing yet for a baby. And so here we are today. They're an official family. Well, I would say they've always been a family, but now it's legally official. And just commending April and Crystal for making that huge climb up the mountain. You wouldn't think you'd have to work so hard to bring love into a family, but congratulations from all of us on that. We're really very happy for you. And then just a reminder to our board members, Miss Bell will be sending calendar dates and links to our open houses. Remember, all of our schools, we're starting off the open house season where our incoming, our soon to be incoming 8th graders will become 9th graders, and they're going to go through that school selection process. So be looking for an email from Miss Bell giving you that information so that you can drop in and visit our open houses. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning it over to our AFT 1481 representation, Mr. Lopez.
Hello, good evening. Just a message, I'm standing in for our President Monica Casey. She just asked me to forward the information. If anybody wants to participate in phone banking and get out the vote drive, please email her. So that's just short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to consent, unless anyone has anything they would like to pull off a consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. Moving on to public comment. Do we have any cards for public comment, Ms. Garrett?
We do not have any public comment for tonight.
Great. Moving on to our discussion items. Item 13A1, 2020-2021 enrollment analysis. Mrs. Basuino.
Good evening. Let me see if I can share my screen here. All right. Good evening, President Salhoudin and members of the board. Tonight I will be sharing our 2020-2021 enrollment analysis report. Let's see if this clicks over. There we go. The purpose is to provide you with information to the Board of Trustees on enrollment analysis and trends. Let's click. On the right, you will see a total district enrollment for each school starting 2018-2019. These enrollment numbers include all the high schools plus adult transition, non-public schools, Thornton High School, Therapeutic Day School, and the Independent Study Program. We went up by 64 students between 2018-19 and 2019-20, and decreased by 113 students between last year and this year. The chart in the center looks at enrollment comparison per school. So Jefferson High School is the only school that is showing increase in attendance for the past 3 years, up 108 students since 2018-19. Where do our 9th grade students live? So this is showing 9th grade enrollment numbers and percents by zip codes. So looking at Brisbane 94005, I want to remind you that this was the first year that we allowed Brisbane to have their first choice, except for Oceana as it is an alternative school, but more than half are in Oceana. Westmore Lottery, this is the second year that we have allowed 30 students outside of the 94015 zip code to attend Westmore. We do have people on the wait list, but the wait list is only for people that were on the lottery that have left or moved, and then we go to the wait list. And then out of district, these are students who live outside our district but have siblings at our school or parents working in our district or our local district. And as you can see, there's not too many of those. Number of ninth grade students in attendance boundaries who did not enroll in JUHSD in 2020. 306 out of 1,151 at approximately 27%. So where were the 306 students enrolled? So as you can see, Jefferson Elementary had 102 of the 687. So 15% of their student population did not come to us. Pacifica had 66 of 352 at almost 20%. Bayshore had 12 of their 44 at 27. And Brisbane had 12 of their 45 at 27%. Other are students who live within our boundaries who either attended private schools, schools outside of our district, or virtual homeschooling that initially entered information on our online portal and decided not to attend our district. So that's 114. So where are the 306 students enrolled now? So 56 or 18% are enrolled at Shasta, 5.6 at SF, 3.3 at San Mateo, 1.6% in South City, and then 17 or 54 of them, 17% are other, which are other California district schools outside of the South City, San Mateo, or San Francisco, such as Monterey, Cabrillo, Antioch. Some of them are on inter-district transfers, and some have just moved into that area. And then private unknown, 164, 53%. And these are students that we cannot find in CalPAD. So they might be a private school, they might be at a different country or even a different state. So freshman class non-selection rate percentage. So just comparing 2019 and 2020 to 2020, 2021, the percent of students selecting out of district and Shasta both decreased from last year. Percent of students selecting private or other increased by 11%. Non-attendance trend, so 2019, 2020 was 21%. And this year was 27%. So overall, the summary findings is we did have a decrease in enrollment. Jefferson High School is the only school with 3-year trend of increase in enrollment. Jefferson is at 80 to 85% physical capacity, and this is something we want to keep an eye on. Especially once students return to campus. 306, 27% who live in the Jefferson boundaries chose not to enroll for whatever reason within our district. Percentage of non-enrollment is up by 6% from 2019, 2020. Shasta's percentage of JUHSD boundary students decreased by 6%. Out of district percentage of JUHSD boundary students decreased by 3%. And percent of students attending private or other is up by 11%. So we just need to continue to improve our outreach, which is very difficult to do in COVID, but our people, our principals are up to the task creating virtual open houses. I know April has been a big help trying to set up the links and getting this information out to our partner schools. And so our next steps are enrollment teams meet on a regular basis to review last year's enrollment and discuss how to improve. And this includes the IT department, ed services, student services, and also includes our very vital support staff who have amazing insight. This will be the first year that we have made no changes to the enrollment process through Parent View. So the parents will receive an email, they'll get a link, and they'll click on that and they can do their selection. April Hawkins has been in communication with our partner schools, sharing all our enrollment flyers and timelines with their families. Our updated website with current enrollment timelines, policies, and instructions, and there's many different ways on our website they can find that information. Creating a link for virtual appointments as well as office hours for walk-in help. And schools are getting very creative with their YouTube. I don't know if you guys had a chance to click on these links from Jefferson, but Chrissy Lewis and Heike Menzel did a great video on YouTube for Jefferson. And we're just pushing out the information regarding our timeline, which starts November 16th through January 4th. So we're really just trying to get information out in all the different ways possible. So is it up to you guys to have any questions? I will unshare my, let me pull this up. Hold on a second. There we go. There we go.
Thank you. Opening it up for questions. None? Oh, Nick, are you on? Oh, yeah, Mr. Ochapinti.
Thank you, President Salahuddin. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Pasquino. This is a good presentation. Yes, it's always a little worrisome to see our enrollment decline a bit, and it's good to see where people are going and wondering where they're making their choices. I guess my question would be, what kind of exit survey questions or process do we have for our students or our partner districts? Are we working with them to create some kind of feedback on that? And if so, what would that look like, or what does it look like?
So at this time, we don't have exit surveys. We ask parents to fill out a link, just kind of asking what school they're going to be going to, but we don't ask for the
Any other questions, comments? Trustee Lee?
Thank you for the presentation. This was really helpful, and I actually was looking at it over the weekend. I remember a couple of years ago, we actually had that demographic study, and I'm just kind of curious how this tracks with what that study was predicting for us at this time. I don't know if you had a chance, if we've had a chance to compare that data, because I'm curious about that.
I can put that in the weekly update. We haven't, Doreen and I haven't connected on that.
Thank you. That'd be great, because it was just, I mean, it's, the trends are interesting, and I'm, especially interested to see, how Jefferson is increasing, but and especially with the decline in Westmore, it's notable.
Yeah, I think that people are just going to their school closest to them now. Because if you looked at the demographer map, it showed a lot of Westmore students were around Jefferson. And I think if we probably had a new demographer map, it would be people are just going to their neighborhood school. But that's just my guess, I'm sure. But, you know, I think it's a testament to the work that the staff has done at Jefferson to really help rebuild the image of that school within the community that it resides. Missing Garrett had her hand up. Thank you so much for using the feature.
Sorry, I do sometimes forget, but I didn't forget this time. So do you think that at-home learning had anything to do with decreased enrollment? You know, like play any part in it? You know, not that it would, so I'm just, you know, trying to find out. And also like if, is it just we don't know where the students are because they just never answered and we're not able to find them, like if they just didn't respond to us as to where they were going, as far as those 164 students go?
I would think that the high percentage of students that aren't in CalPADS are probably in private school, with a small percentage probably moving outside the district, outside of California.
Trustee Abuzea.
Thank you. Is there a breakdown of like the capacity of each individual school? Like the percent capacity?
That's in the demographer's study too. I don't have it handy.
But we can have that information sent to you guys so you can see it. Trustee Tata.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. It is always interesting to see the enrollment numbers. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how we compare this to that study we had done with this must be 4 years now. And where I think part of it was there just aren't as many kids and families with kids and no new developments. But yeah, and I think, don't we have a great number? This probably also takes into account the families that don't tell us that they've, they have moved out of the area. Yeah, but is that a big number? Or because after school starts and you realize that, there are a bunch of students who actually forgot their parents did not unenroll them, that those numbers have become included in the numbers that you've given.
So the numbers that we have are numbers that our people have already vetted. So there are students that we are still working on at some of our schools that we still can't get a hold of. But our objective is not to drop a student until we actually know where they are. So we're still trying to work with families and friends and trying to figure out where those students are.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. This is good information to have. It's always good to be mindful of enrollment trends and where it's going. It ebbs and flows. The number of students that we're getting from Jefferson Elementary has actually gone up. I remember I don't remember 5 years ago or so, we weren't getting, I think almost 30%. It was pretty high. So that number has gone up, the number of students that are coming here. But, we'll see what happens with the recession. The last time there was a recession, there was an exodus from private school and a lot of people came back into public school. So this could continue to be fluid. It's nice to have this check-in to keep it mindful. And I think this is also good information to have in the conversations that we were having with Brisbane to actually show how much capacity. We have tons of capacity in our schools that we currently have open. So to kind of reiterate that with Brisbane and talks about future development there. So unless there's any other comments or questions. All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Basuino, for the presentation. Moving on to our next item, which is 13B1, Summit Shasta, an annual update to the Board of Education. And I will turn this over to Fran.
Hi, how are you all doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Let me just set up sharing my screen. Hold on one sec.
Okay, can you see that okay? Great.
Yes, we can.
So I'm Ren Maletsky. I'm the executive director at Summit Shasta. So nice to be back here again. This is my 5th year at Shasta, and it's Shasta's 8th year with students. And so I'm joined here today by Ava. Ava, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ava Petrash. I am the assistant director. This is my 4th year at Shasta, and 4th year working with Ren, and really nice to see all of you, even if virtually.
Great. So Ava and I are hoping to just give you all a quick presentation. I'm going to give you some statistics and data just about our school from the last year. And then Ava is going to talk a little bit about what virtual school has looked like last spring and then this fall at Shasta. And then we're happy to answer any questions that you have. So that's kind of our overview of what we're going to share with you all tonight. I always like to start with our mission. This has stayed the same since Shasta's charter was first approved in 2013. So our mission is to prepare a diverse student population for success in a 4-year college or university and to be thoughtful, contributing members of society. We leverage our work to have a broader impact on education in America. And so every part of our school day, all the experiences that our students have are geared towards that mission and helping students really realize that mission by the time they graduate. The design of our school model has stayed the same the last few years. I might have even shown you this specific graphic last year. And so we still have our 4 key student outcomes, which are cognitive skills, content, habits of success, and sense of purpose. Those 4 things happen throughout the day in 3 different ways. So they happen in one-to-one mentoring, which students have on a daily basis in the morning. That's an opportunity for students to both practice habits of success and have conversations with their mentor around their sense of purpose. They also happen through real-world projects. And so when students are in their classes like English and history and science, they're practicing the cognitive skills and content knowledge that we know is critical for success. And then finally, it happens through individualized pathways. We sometimes refer to that as self-directed learning. And that actually gives students a chance to really practice all of those, but we like to emphasize sense of purpose at that time so students can think about that specific student outcome. And thinking about our school in review and from how we've changed since we last presented to you all last year. First of all, these are our school goals for 2020, 2021. They look a little different this year. And so I know the last few years when Ava and I have joined, we've had very specific data goals. With virtual school, we have had to shift our priorities as school leaders. And so these are kind of the 5 main goals that we had. We are, I would say for the most part, really focusing on the 3rd bullet point at this point in the year. We've had a pretty strong start in terms of enrollment and attendance at our school. And so like all of you, I think we're still trying to figure out the virtual landscape and the best way to teach in the virtual world and how we can engage students and make the most of that time. So I think that's kind of the area that we're focusing on now. We of course hope students are learning and growing as well, but we've kind of moved into the 2nd tier of bullet points, 3, 4, and 5. In terms of our faculty, I love this photo. It's a great photo of Ava, and I feel like it's a terrible photo of me, but I just took a random screenshot so you could see what the Shasta faculty looks like. A few of you are laughing, great. Hopefully you agree with that assessment of the picture. Our makeup of our team is about the same as last year. We still have 6 office and administrative staff. So in addition to Ava and I as the leaders of the school, we have 2 deans, a community engagement manager, and an office assistant that support with operations and running of the school. We have 21 full-time faculty members, and we have 3 residents in the Summit Teacher Residency Program. Since I submitted this PowerPoint for you all's packet, the name of that program has actually changed. So it's now called the Marshall Street Residency Program. So I apologize that isn't updated on the slides, but just wanted to call that out since it changed in the last week. These are our updated enrollment and demographics for the year. So we currently have 469 students enrolled at our school. you can see the breakdown that we have per grade level. A few things that I wanted to highlight in terms of numbers. One, we are, as we've discussed in years past, trying to get back to our model design, which is around 440 to 450 students. And so you'll see we intentionally have a smaller 9th grade this year to work back towards that overall target that we want. That 11th grade we know is big. It was at like 150 when they started in 9th grade. And so we've been trying to keep those other grades at where we ultimately want them to be. So that's one thing I wanted to flag there. The second is over on the side, I have our demographic data from 2019, 2020. This was the most recent data that our data team could pull. So I apologize, it's not updated for this year, but it has our, we have 7.3% of students in special education, 4.3% of our students are English learners, 22% of our students qualify as socioeconomically disadvantaged. We should have updated numbers for that, I think, hopefully within the next few weeks. And we're anticipating that it actually may increase a little bit. And then our race ethnicity breakdown, you can see for the different races that we were tracking there. And thinking about our 9th grade, I feel like it was fortuitous that we just followed someone talking about enrollment, because Ava and I were very interested in the enrollment presentation we just heard. So of our 111 9th graders, 41 of them are siblings of current Shasta students or students that have graduated from our schools, which is our highest number ever by a lot. I think our most recent highest number of siblings was like 30 in a year. So this is a lot higher in terms of the number of siblings that we had this year. 100% of our 9th graders are coming to us from within the Jefferson Union High School District. And so within predominantly the 94015 zip code is the majority of our students in our 9th grade, but some of the other zip codes are represented there. I did want to call out, because it is specific in our charter, around Daniel Webster and the borders of the Daniel Webster School. And I think last year's 9th grade class, we had 12 students from there, and this year we have 25. So it has increased a lot in terms of targeting that specific community. And then 37 of our 9th graders are returning to the district from private schools. We have been working to make sure that we are a school of the community in which we're based. And so one of the big shifts you've seen is we are having all students from within the Jefferson Union High School District, which was not true, I know, in the early years of Shasta when I came to these presentations. And so part of that is the work of our community engagement manager, just making sure that we're doing outreach to families within that area. In terms of attendance, so you can see our ADA for the last 3 school years. We're really proud of our ADA from last year. We hired a new dean last year of operations, Claudia Chavez, who did a phenomenal job in terms of systematizing that program and really following up with students who are struggling with attendance. As we all know, attendance is a little different this year when we're reporting to the state. So just wanted to share that data from the last 3 years. And then again, these are our results. And because testing didn't happen in the spring, I know some of them are a little outdated, but you can see our PSAT results from last fall with the Shasta average. All students at Shasta take the PSAT. And so our school average was a 1,054. It also has our SAT average was a 1,151. And then we included our Smarter Balanced Assessment data from 2019, which was 86.5% of our 11th graders met or exceeded standard in English and 69.5% met or exceeded standard in math. And then the last piece of data I wanted to highlight is around our college data. We were excited that once again, 100% of our graduates were accepted into a 4-year college or university. We put a few of the highlights down below. For sure, we are very proud of our Posse Scholars. We've had a really strong partnership with Posse the last few years. I think we're up to, is it like 10 maybe?
Yeah.
10 Posse Scholars in the last 4 years, which is incredible. And so we're really proud of that work. We have our fingers crossed. We have a number of semifinalists right now going through the process. So hopefully that continues into this school year. We had some really great private school and UC acceptances last year. And students are really attending a wide range of schools across California, although many of them are doing it from their bedroom at home. So we're hopeful they get to college and get to have that experience sometime soon as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Ava to talk a little about virtual school. And Ava, just tell me when you want me to switch to the next slide.
Great, thanks. So in the spring, we worked really hard to try to maintain consistency for our students in their daily schedule in virtual school. We know that in times of challenge and disruption, consistency is really valuable for teenagers. And so we worked really hard to make sure that we could maintain a lot of what they had come to expect around their daily schedule. We have, for the most part, kept that schedule pretty consistent through the start of this school year as well. So here you can see our bell schedule. Students still attend all of their regular project time classes each day. We do have a block schedule, so they see classes every other day. And we actually added a time block at the end of the day for this school year based on some feedback that we got from students and from teachers around students needing a little bit more support with self-directed learning, especially in the virtual setting. So that time block where you see habits and content development, that was actually a new addition this year that we put in based on feedback that we had gotten from the spring and what students were struggling with. Wednesdays, we have kept very similar to the spring, and it is in some ways a little bit of a break for students. We know that being in Zoom classes all day can be draining and challenging for both teachers and students. And so we've really dedicated Wednesday to community building time and then time for students to do self-directed learning so they can catch up on the work that they need to do, step away if they are having trouble looking at a screen, they can take a break and go for a walk and come back and work at their own pace. And so students on Wednesdays start the day with an hour and a half of time in their mentor group that is really dedicated to community building and connection. We use a circle structure where students can share about things that are going on in their world and their life, and then time for them to check in with their peers and their mentor. And then after that, teachers have the rest of the day to do professional development and planning. We have our grade level team meetings on Wednesdays, and students are working independently and can reach out for additional support from their teachers if they need it, like a workshop or a check-in on that day as well. We are also still maintaining our regular expeditions schedule. So as many of you know, our students take their elective classes through the expeditions model, which means that every 6 to 8 weeks, they stop their core classes and take 1 or 2 full day classes in a subject that they're really excited and passionate about. And so we are continuing to have expeditions virtually. That has been a little bit of a challenge. If you have seen some of the examples of expeditions classes that we have in the past, it's like cooking or bike shop. So we've been trying to figure out how to do those things virtually, and really appreciative to our expeditions team who are trying to be creative in finding ways for students to still pursue those passions, even in a virtual setting. All right, Ryan, you can go to the next slide. I would say that as we reflect on the spring, there were a lot of things that we were really proud of, and also some things that we knew that we wanted to iterate on for the fall to ensure that we were really meeting the needs of the students. The first is that our learning platform made the transition to virtual school pretty easy for us. And we are really grateful for that. And so our teachers were already used to housing everything in that platform. It was really easy to make the transition, and students could access all of the things they needed for learning, even when they were at home. 99% of our students were logging in every day to attend their classes during the spring in virtual school, and that number has stayed pretty consistent in the fall as well. I would say that we have maybe 5 to 10 students who are absent on a daily basis, but that's about it. And we are working really hard, whether that's texting, calling, reach out to family members to get our students engaged every day, because we know how hard it can be once a student starts to slip through the cracks for them to get back on track. And so we're really actively trying to maintain connection with all of our students. And I think our teachers were able to transition really smoothly to virtual instruction. Oh, that says instructor, but instruction. because of the structures and routines of our academic model. So the platform, a lot of the systems and structures that we had used in regular school, were able to transition fairly easily to virtual school. And so in a lot of ways, the experience in class felt very similar for students, even if they were learning from their bedrooms. All right, next one, Rin. Great. As I mentioned, there were a number of things that we wanted to improve or change for the fall, and especially the realization that whereas in the spring it felt a little bit temporary that we were in virtual school, and we kept saying to ourselves, oh, if we can just get through to the end of the year, we'll be back. I'm sure you all had maybe similar feelings, and then we got to the summer and realized that that wasn't necessarily going to be the case, and so wanted to make sure that we were really improving our program. We started the no academic classes on Wednesday about halfway through the spring, and we continued that in the fall because we felt like that really gave students some time to take a little bit of a brain break, and also gave teachers time. We know that teaching in virtual school in many cases is a lot more work for teachers and requires a lot more time, and so wanted to make sure we were dedicating time within the school day for teachers to do that work. As I mentioned, we added the habits, content, and development class for 45 minutes to end each school day based on feedback to get students additional support. In the spring, we used Google Hangouts, and this fall we transitioned to Zoom for a few reasons, security primarily, but also the use of breakout rooms, which was not really a feature that teachers had access to in the spring. So they are really enjoying that feature. It makes group work a lot more possible. And then we also knew that for a lot of our students, it was really important that they are able to set up a workspace in their home so that they could be successful, especially going into months, potentially a year of virtual learning. And so all students received a school in the box to start the year that they could use to set up a virtual workstation for themselves and really settle in to virtual school and working from home. The last thing that I'll say before we move on to questions is obviously the future is unknown and uncertain. I'm sure for you all too, but I believe really strongly in our teachers and our students, and I know that they're working incredibly hard to try to adapt to these challenges and the changing landscape of virtual school. And Ren and I both just feel really lucky to work with our teachers and our families and our students, and really grateful for our community and for your all's guidance. And so we're feeling really grateful to meet the challenge of virtual school. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. Opening up for questions. Ms. Garrett.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering how you go about, I guess, promoting the school, and is there like a limit of the capacity that you accept the students? I think I remember the presentation from last time that you had mentioned something like that. So I just wanted to ask that question again, just to kind of refresh as a refresher.
Yeah, we promote the school, I would say, in a lot of different ways. And the strategy, to be honest, has actually shifted a lot in the last few years. We do a lot on social media. And so our community engagement manager is pretty active in terms of updating our Facebook page and Instagram and things like that. She will reach out to some of the local schools. And we actually now, because we have been around for 8 years, we have families that still have connections at some of the middle schools. And so sometimes we'll leverage some of those family connections to spread the word about our school in that ways. She also does a lot of outreach at like grocery stores or community events or different places that she can potentially publicize Shasta. And so I would say that's probably one of the third biggest ways that she has started publicizing our school. In terms of, it sounds like you were asking about capacity. We want each of our grade levels to have 110 students. And so if we have more applications than that, we run a lottery, which we have had to run a lottery for probably the last 6 or 7 years because of the number of applications that we've received. And so we use the tiers in our charter to determine the results of our lottery in March.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Abuzaria.
I have two questions. The first one is, what was like the student response to having a 5-minute break between classes?
Yeah, I can take that one. That's the schedule that we used also in regular school. We have a 5-minute passing period. I think, to be honest, students find it more challenging in regular school to get to their next class on time. In virtual school, we haven't really gotten any feedback on whether or not that's the right amount of time. But certainly in regular school, there was a lot of reminding students that they needed to head to class.
Oh, that's interesting because at Westmore we have a 10-minute break and some students still feel like that's not enough time. My next question was, what exactly is in the School in a Box package?
Yeah, great question. So each of our students gets a Chromebook. And so for our new 9th graders, their School in the Box included their Chromebook. And then we provided students with lots of materials like a whiteboard, markers, pens and pencils, notebooks, things that they could use to set up kind of like a virtual workstation where they would have everything that they might need. So for example, I was observing a math class the other day and the teacher was having students do their work on a whiteboard and like hold up their whiteboard with their answer in front of their camera. Just as a different way rather than typing it in the Zoom chat or doing it on Desmos, a different way to keep students engaged. So those are kind of some of the like office supplies or school supplies that were in the School in a Box.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Trustee Ochupinti.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was good to see some more data this year. I know last time we heard there were some numbers that we were interested in. And it's good to see that they've been reported here in terms of special education, students learning English, and of course, in terms of demographics, African-American students and other students who are underrepresented, or basically, to understand a better idea of how the school is better reflecting the community. So thank you for that. Based on that, I'll be interested to see or to hear how during COVID and even just over the past year, what kind of strategies is Summit Shasta using to reach students who have special needs, students who are learning English, your ELD classes. How is that being navigated, maybe with different staffing online, whether you have bilingual aides or any other instructional aids, and maybe co-teaching, or what kind of strategies you're using to address that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We have, as you saw in the slides, a fairly low English learner population at Shasta, and the English learners we do have are all in the like intermediate to advanced in terms of their like reclassification. For the first time ever, we actually have a new 9th grader who I would say is like level 1, 2 on the CELT in terms of their English language ability. And so that has required, he actually has been receiving a lot of support from our community engagement manager and our dean of operations, just to support with Spanish and integrating into the school. And so I would say we haven't had to change our staffing in terms of being able to support that. I think Ava and I and the rest of the administrative team have been creative in how we think about our own personal time and how we're structuring our daily schedule. And so one of the things, Ava and I started as classroom teachers at a different Summit school, so we love being in the classroom, but we've actually started teaching intervention blocks multiple times a week. And we identified with faculty students that either needed additional support because they're a diverse learner or they may be struggling with English as a second language. And we've created small classes to support those students during the week to give them extra touch points, because we know learning over Zoom and over the computer is really challenging. And especially if language is a barrier, or you struggle to learn in a certain modality, that can be really hard. And so I think that's one place that we've added that in. I would say also the habits and content class that teachers are offering at the end of the day. For a lot of our students, it's more of like an independent work time, and then teachers are leveraging those 45 minutes to do targeted interventions with students that may be struggling. So they'll pull 5 kids into a room one of the big things we've tried to purchase for teachers in addition is resources like document cameras and things like that, so they can make learning more visual, which I think is very helpful for students if they're struggling with language and that's a barrier. And so those are just a few of the strategies that we've definitely been trying out. We are, along with you all, trying to figure out what school reopening looks like, and if it's a phased plan, how you can do that equitably across our student populations. And so I think we've definitely identified some students that would benefit from being on the early end of returning to campus. And so we're just trying to partner with our CEO and our district at Summit to think about what that would look like too.
The only other thing I will add is, those of you who've been to our campus know that we don't have a ton of classrooms. And so actually in the virtual space, the flexibility of not having to be constrained by the number of rooms that we have at any given time has allowed our education specialists, our special education teachers, to be a little bit more flexible with how they schedule their learning center meetings. And so they can work with smaller groups of students at one time. And that's been really helpful as well. And so we are kind of constantly in communication. I met with one of our learning specialists today to talk about the groupings and the size and when they're meeting, to make sure that we are constantly evaluating if those are working and changing schedules or adjusting schedules if they're not, so that we can better meet the needs in particular of our students with IEPs.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, Ms. Tejada.
So you saw from our presentation that enrollment at Shasta is down 6%, but then you said that you intentionally are keeping that number low. And yet you have I'm trying to get this straight, you have a wait list and you use the lottery. So you must cap it at some number and then allow extra students in.
Yeah, it's a good question. I was texting Ava during the presentation because I had some questions about the numbers in the presentation. I think one of the biggest ones is it said that only 56 students from in-district went to Shasta, but our freshman class has 111. So I don't know if those students, because they're coming from private middle schools or something, if they're not being flagged in the data, I'm guessing that may be part of it. The 6% number, I'm not totally sure where that came from. Our enrollment as a school is actually higher this year than it was last year. So I think when I presented to you all last year, we were at like 458 or something, and now we're at 469. Our model enrollment that we want to be at is around 440. And so we're trying to cap our classes around 110, 112, because we know there'll be some attrition over high school as families move in and out of the area. So I saw the 6%. I don't know. I think that may be based on other metrics, but like our overall Shasta actually increased from last year to this year if you're just looking at our overall total enrollment.
The only other thing I would add is, I think we've talked about this in the last few presentations, but we changed the process with which we approached our lottery. In years past, when we had that very large class, we used to offer more spots than the spots that we had available, and hope that there was a little bit of attrition in the acceptance process. We have also changed that process, and so now we only offer the number of spots that we have, and then as people decline the offers, we will take students off the wait list. And so in years past, we haven't gone to the wait list as soon because we've over offered, and this starting last year and this year in particular, we only offered 110 spots for our 9th grade and waited until we heard back from every one of those families before we started taking students off the wait list there, just to be very careful that we didn't over enroll in the same way, because that has caused kind of some cascading logistical challenges. We have a pretty small staff, and so an over enrolled class has lots of cascading effects, and we wanted to try to avoid that.
Thank you. So, and I think too, we have a 2x2 coming up at some point. We can just deep dive into the enrollment and figure that out. But I do think it's the private school numbers need to be factored in. So again, just knowing the way you guys teach, I figured that it lends itself to at-home learning since it was very student-driven, the way your model is set up for students. So it's nice to see that that actually is happening and not you have 90%. Your attendant number was really high. So congratulations on that. And so I know that the classroom in the box that went home, I'm wondering about your connectivity and were there any connectivity issues in Wi-Fi and how you're handling that?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's been something that was a little bit of a challenge in the spring, and I think we maybe distributed 15 to 20 hotspots in the spring. It's actually been a noticeably larger challenge this fall, which I don't think we were expecting. So we've had, I think, almost 50 requests for hotspots at this point. For families in particular, we have a lot of sibling families, and having 2 or 3 in some cases students on Wi-Fi all trying to engage in their Zoom classes at one time can be really challenging for bandwidth for a family. And so we have just been meeting any request for a Wi-Fi hotspot that we can, and we're really grateful to be able to do that. But that definitely has been a challenge. I will say also in particular, just making sure that students with unique situations at home are getting the support that they need, caring for siblings or students who need to work and have really unique work schedules or things like that. So we are working really hard to try to be in communication with students directly and then also with their families, to better understand what their needs are and try to be able to meet them. But in some cases that is additionally challenging since we don't have any in-person ability. And so trying to set up a situation at home, even if their home structure is challenging, has been a little bit of a barrier. Ren and I have been working really hard to try to figure out how to get around some of those barriers. But and we are continuing to offer lunch meal packets for all of our community, and for actually, I think we're offering them for anyone, even non-students, to pick up on Mondays as well. So continuing to offer those meal services for the community too.
And so that was kind of a lead into my second question, which is, since your curriculum is so heavily based on access to the computer and the computer's working, are the hotspots enough? Are those, or just still presenting connectivity challenges to stay,
Yeah, for most students, I would say it's working. I met with our CFO recently because I was redoing our budget to make sure that we had space to purchase unlimited hotspots, since that was so important. We've actually just upgraded, and I wish I could tell you the name of the new hotspot that we're using, but we were using one model and we've actually moved to the next tier above that, which is a little bit more expensive. But it hopefully addresses some of the challenges Ava highlighted, particularly in families where we have sometimes 2-3 students using the same hotspot to try to get online. So for the most part, I don't think we have any student where I'm like, they cannot access online learning at all. We figured out a solution to that. I think the new issue is we do have some students that live in really bad cell service areas down the peninsula. And I think that has been more of a challenge to figure out how to support them with that. But our office assistant is present at school from 8 to 4:30 every day. And so when students have one-off tech challenges, we have someone who can be there within an hour or two to trade out a computer, or get them a new hotspot or something like that if it's a longer issue.
And then again, with your results with the PSAT and the college data and the college acceptance rate, those are all awesome and great job on doing all of that. The one challenge that I would present is that 4.3% English language learners is not really reflective of an immigrant-based community. And so I know that part of that challenge is who is actually applying, right? And if and are the people that are applying based in the ELL community? But I don't know, that could be something else that we could talk about in 2x2, so we don't take too much time here. But everything else, like social economically challenged, the makeup and diversity of the school is good, but that is the one area where I would say, I don't know if that's too reflective of the community, especially with the high immigrant and diverse population that we have here in Daly City, and especially in JUHSD, and especially in the Daly City area.
Yes, like I agree. I think to be frank, I think the diverse learner number is also a little below the district in terms of students with IEPs. So like I agree with you. I would flag those as the two areas where we recognize that. I think I was looking, our 2x2, I think is tomorrow. That is a place where we want that number to be more reflective of the district, definitely open to feedback of things we can do. I agree. I think there's some selection bias in who has been applying. And so I think that's reflecting what you're seeing in the English learner data. We've started doing a lot of translation into numerous languages on all of our materials. But that's something I'm definitely happy to talk about tomorrow, because again, we want it to match the district in terms of all of those demographic numbers. And we know that's an area for growth.
Fantastic. And then other than that, I'm always happy to see you guys annually. Thank you for the presentation. This was a great report, lots of information. And so continuing the ongoing relationship, unless there's any other questions, comments, I will let you ladies go back to your evening.
Great to see
you, everyone. Nice to
Have a good night. All right, moving on to our district COVID-19 recovery plan update. Dr. Deloria.
Thank you. I always put this on the agenda, but I'm not sure any of the assistant soups have anything to offer. Corinne, do you have anything you want to talk about tonight?
Not tonight, thank you.
And there's no update from HR, anything from business?
No, nothing new tonight.
Okay, so we can just move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to board policies. I believe we are at the finish line with board policies. So thank you to Dr. Deloria for getting us through all of this. That was a Herculean lift. I know before we tried to do this, and it's such a hard task that it was completely unsuccessful. So we had to start the process all over again. So thank you so much for getting us through there. And I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments on the finish line of policy updates. What? No? All right. Oh, Trustee Pity, sorry.
Sorry, I forgot that I left the hand raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to just echo that. Thank you, Dr. Deloria, for getting us up to speed and really updating everything we need on that level. I think it's really important to understand that what we do on a day-to-day basis, what our district does, what our community does, is really important to honor that, but also to keep up to date with what's going on locally, statewide, and nationally in terms of education policy. That's one of, I think, the areas that here, as a board member too, I'm always looking at what's going on, in terms of staying updated, and to see you keep ahead of that is really impressive. And I think it's an asset to our district to understand how, we're actually staying ahead of those things and serving as an example for the rest of the area as well. So just to honor that and acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any questions, comments on our BPs for consideration? Nope. All right, moving on. Consideration of future agenda items. Anyone have any items they'd like to put on the future agenda? Nope. Okay, fantastic. Moving on. We are adjourning tonight's meeting in honor of a Jefferson High School District alum, Omar Shahid Zahir. He was a student of Jefferson High School and a graduate of Thornton High School class of 2002. It is always a challenge when we lose one of our students from our district, and especially when it's too soon. So our hearts go out to the entire Board of Trustees, to Omar's family, friends, and a host of his loved ones. So closing the meeting in his honor. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Oh, Ed has a comment.
Sorry to interrupt. When you were closing in honor, our new teacher, Lakara Magahoy, lost her parent in the Philippines to COVID, and one is in the hospital the other one's in the hospital with COVID. So I just want to let you guys know that.
Okay, thank you. We can add it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for that, Ed. I'm super very, very sorry for their loss. I know that it's COVID-19 is hitting families hard, especially in our Philan community. So I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and her sister and her father and sister are in the hospital. So.
Okay.
My God.
Okay. So with that, Jake, we need to go back to closed. Is it okay for us to use the former Zoom?
Yes, I'll open it back up, and then when you hop in, I'll make you the host.
Okay, perfect. All right. So the meeting is I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
No, it's okay.
Just a reminder, the next board meeting is on Monday, November the 2nd, not November the 3rd, due to the election day.
All right. Everyone is reminded. Thank you so much. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. And for the board members, we can go back to close.